Hey guys, basically I'm back here now. I really did not really think I would want to make this video, as I knew many other people were going to make this same exact video, but I feel like I should just make it anyways, just so I could give my opinions and thoughts. So, yeah. Now, if you clicked on this video not knowing what FNAF AR is, get off and learn. But for those who do know, obviously we know that FNAF AR is a spin-off title to FNAF, along kind of with FNAF Help Wanted, except that really wasn't a spin-off, but it was kind of set up as a spin-off, something like that. Basically, FNAF AR is a big mobile augmented reality game, released on iOS and Android. I don't know why I'm promoting this, but basically, to give some more info, Illumix has, had a not shady, but a rough history with the game, as they do some things good, but also some things bad, especially with them releasing skin after skin after skin, which honestly, in my opinion, I really don't mind the skins. I think they're cool, and I kind of see them as sort of new characters, and it gives me something to make customs out of. But people asking for new characters, that's fine with me too. But over time, people have slowly just left the game. They've forgotten about it. They've, lots of people like it. Lots of people hate it. Lots of people hate it. I really think I grew out of FNAF AR. If it hasn't been aware, I haven't really made videos of the game anymore. I used to, especially on my old channel, but obviously I don't do that anymore, and it's mainly because I don't have the game anymore for specific reasons. But I still like the game either way. But recently things have been very silent, as Illumix's last update was back in December of last year, and the update was Funtime Freddy being released. And as we all know, Funtime Freddy was a very anticipated character to be released in the game, along with Plushtrap and Lefty. But Lefty has still yet to be released. But then again, all of his assets and jump scare animations, like everything that Lefty needs, is all in the files of the game. But it has yet to be released in the actual full version, which is still unexplained by Illumix, and it hasn't really been aware. Not that aware, but it's like, just leaving out question after question. But here's a very big question, which I'm going to get into later. But basically, it wasn't until today that people discovered a new Twitter account, which is owned by Illumix, and it's called Illumix AR. And lots of people were wondering, where is there a new Illumix account? And they haven't and this new account doesn't mention FNAF at all. FNAF AR or FNAF in general, it just doesn't mention it. And it wasn't long before people also discovered a new website, which also mentions nothing of FNAF. Like, it mentions nothing. So people are wondering, why is there these new accounts, and there's this new website, and why is FNAF not being mentioned? Well, people eventually were adding up all the clues and details, and we basically came to the conclusion that FNAF AR is done, and Illumix abandoned the game, which basically means the game's not really going to be updated, like with new stuff, like no new skins, no new characters, nothing. But recently, we've been basically throughout these whole few months, we've been getting Blast to the Past events, which honestly are just re-releases of old characters and old skins, which honestly are very repetitive and I feel like are very dumb. But obviously, I haven't known that until now, which I will say real quick. I recommend watching Johnny Blox's video about the situation, because he kind of covers more of the stuff. It kind of covers more better stuff than I do, really, kind of like how he did with the Theft King K Carter video. Also, this video is not scripted. This is literally just me giving my thoughts and just what I'm thinking right now. But basically, Illumix abandoned the game, and lots of people were upset, but also were kind of happy and glad. Like, obviously, FNAF AR has had a bad reputation with the mediocre skins and, the dumb updates that have been getting pushed through and just kind of either made the game better or ruined it. FNAF AR's history has been very complicated with the whole FNAF franchise. And it's really either it's left a hole in the franchise, both a good and a bad hole. But most people want to consider it to be a bad hole, as it is very, most people despise how the game is just very mediocre and even awful, I guess. But really, seeing it actually end, like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like, but it's kind of sad, really, if you really think about it, and upsetting, because there's a big problem with Illumix leaving the game. Now, obviously, Illumix, like, are moving on to bigger things, and they've partnered with Disney with other stuff, and they're making more things. They're moving on from FNAF, which honestly I understand. But the problem with this is that, one, they don't mention FNAF at all in their new accounts or website, which honestly, really, you need to. Not necessarily need to, but you should at least mention something about it, as FNAF AR was Illumix's first game. Like, think about it. FNAF AR was Illumix's first project that they've ever done. It was the first thing that the company has ever made. It's the first thing they've ever done. And the fact that they don't mention it at all in their new accounts or new website, it's honestly like Illumix is trying to start new, trying to forget about FNAF AR. And I feel like Illumix is they are obviously moving on. But really, if you're going to move on, you have to mention at least where you came from. Because Illumix never would have made it this far. They wouldn't have made so much money. They wouldn't have done all this if it wasn't for FNAF. Like, if FNAF is the reason why they're so successful, and it's the reason why they were able to do all this. And the fact now that they are just done with the game in general, and they haven't even mentioned it to anyone or anything. And that's the thing. Illumix hasn't said anything on their old Twitter accounts or new Twitter accounts. They haven't mentioned anything on any of their social medias. They haven't mentioned anything about them actually leaving the game. But all the points kind of prove that they basically have left the game. But it hasn't fully been announced. Nobody from Illumix or no one from Illumix. Like, no one said anything. No one's confirmed anything. But it's made very clear, kind of just through all the evidence, that Illumix is done with the game. They're just done with it. And honestly, that really gets upsetting, because not just because they're abandoning the game, but because they're abandoning it and they're not even saying anything. Like, they just make these new accounts and new website, and they don't even mention anything about FNAF, and they don't even mention that they're leaving the game. They don't mention about how they just don't mention anything. They don't speak of it. Like, and let me just say, Illumix's YouTube channel also hasn't been really updated either. Like, they haven't really uploaded in 7 months or something. And Illumix honestly is not giving us anything. They're not telling us anything. And people are always going to want to know what the hell happened. Well, the truth is, I don't even know if we're going to know what happened. But seeing as how this has become aware, and people are probably going to make lots of videos on it, I feel like Illumix is going to have to speak out at some point and let them know. Obviously, we know that FNAF AR, it's done. We know that it's done. But we need a proper farewell to the franchise. Because even though the game's had a bad reputation and a good reputation, it's still a FNAF game either way. Whether you love it or hate it, it's still a part of the franchise, and you can't just be done with a game without properly saying goodbye. Like, you just can't do that, because it really isn't fair. It's like you're backstabbing the community, honestly. Like, you're not telling anyone about this. So, Illumix, if you're seeing all these videos, or if you're seeing just mine, which it's probably not possible, but if you are, speak out about this, please. This is gonna become something, and the only way it's gonna stop is if you actually make yourself aware. You have to actually let people know. Don't just abandon everyone like this. Don't just leave them in the dust. Don't just leave them with nothing. Nothing just to kind of hold back. I don't know. But it's like, it gets upsetting. Also, I'm not crying. I know it sounds like I'm about to cry, but I'm not. But that's really all. I really don't have anything else to say besides I just want Illumix to speak out. Everyone wants Illumix to speak out. They want him to say, FNAF AR is done. We want to confirm this. And the fact that Illumix is just not, it just seems unfair. It really is. It's seeming unfair. And it's not fair for all of us, or anyone. They can move on. That's fine. Johnny Blocks has said it himself. So Illumix can move on with other stuff. That's completely fine. But at least make yourself aware of what came before. What came before. And what made you so successful. I'm sorry. Just do something, Illumix. Do something and let people know. Because the fact that you aren't even telling anyone about it, it's upsetting. So please do something about this. And give a proper farewell. I'm sorry about my speech or whatever in this video. I'm sorry, but like I was saying, Illumix, if you're watching this, do the right thing. Give a proper farewell to this franchise.